Before we get to the show, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Kravit Inc. for sponsoring the show. Have you heard the majority of Kravit Inc. products are in stock and ready to ship within days? Yes. Order your favorite patterns from Kravit's exclusive in-stock collections. You can keep your interior design projects on track with Kravit Inc. Go to Kravit.com today to set up an account. And I want you to jot down this code, AWDB10. You can use this code for 10% off any one order of Kravit fabric, wallpaper, or trim when you order online. AWDB10. Go to Kravit.com today and get started. Welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to a very special episode of A Well-Designed Business Podcast. Today, we're celebrating an incredible milestone, 1,000 episodes. And you might be wondering, who the heck is this? Because I am clearly not LuAnn Nigara. Well, my name is JudeCharles, and I am a filmmaker and brand strategist and a friend of the podcast. LuAnn has invited me on this episode to come and ask her questions about this amazing 8-year, 1,000 episode, 500-week journey. LuAnn and I first met in 2020 through this very podcast when she invited me to be a guest. And that went so well that she invited me to be back on 3 more times after that. But what I didn't know at the time is the friendship and the partnership that was forming between LuAnn and I. Because not only was I a guest on the podcast, but then I went on to produce the docuseries that actually tells the story of this very podcast and tells the story of this community that LuAnn has been building for the last 8 years. The docuseries features friends like Sandra Funk and Cheryl Luckett and Stacey Garcia and Corey Damon Jenkins. But if you've been under a rock or you have no idea what I'm talking about, the docuseries that I'm talking about, here is a quick trailer of the 4-part docuseries, A Well-Designed Business docuseries.
I rarely consciously build in downtime.
I started the new podcast this week, Window Treatments for Profit. How many years are you in business?
Just turned 3.
Nice. And he teaches at Lu University too.
Yeah.
I just don't often need it. I can power through. But when it's a 10-day trip like this, there should have been some downtime built in.
When you're building a business, all businesses, the strength of them is the relationships, and relationships are nurtured through email and texting, but they're built in person.
I am in an airport with LuAnn. We are leaving my first ever speaking engagement in the design industry that LuAnn invited me to be a part of.
Our pre-call went like an hour and a half. We didn't record, but I was like, I love you. She's like, I love you too. I'm like, girl, we got to talk more.
She's from the industry, she's done it, so she understands what designers go through.
We had the event here, and it was the biggest event that we've had in our showroom. And the way that they were hanging on her every word, like, we were so impressed.
This is the truth. It wouldn't work if it weren't both ways. If I wasn't being impacted, I would be bored of it. And if the impact wasn't going out, nobody would listen anymore. I'd be in a closet going, this is great. Everybody would be like, not really. You know what I mean?
So if you haven't watched the docuseries, head over to LuAnn's YouTube channel or go to LuAnnNigara.com/doc. Again, that's LuAnnNigara.com/doc, D-O-C. When LuAnn asked me to interview her for this 1000th episode, my intention was for you to hear LuAnn like you've never heard her before. For example, on this episode, I asked LuAnn, what season of your life still gives you heart palpitations? Right? Like, that's a good question, because if you know LuAnn, not much rocks her. But surprisingly, this conversation turned into many powerful lessons of perseverance. So, in case you've only recently discovered LuAnn, or you've been listening since episode 1, just know this is an episode you are going to listen to over and over. Now, before we jump into the conversation, this episode is produced a little differently than most. If you're listening to only the audio version of the podcast, I'd encourage you to actually hop over to the YouTube channel to watch the video version of the podcast, because in the video version, we're featuring sneak peeks of the docuseries that I mentioned earlier, and this is a full video experience of my conversation with LuAnn. So as long as you're not driving or you're not doing some other activity that requires for you to fully pay attention, I'd encourage you to hop over to the YouTube channel now to watch the video version. All right, without further ado, here is LuAnn Nigara in episode 1000 of a Well-Designed Business Podcast. LuAnn, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And your first podcast was published on Monday, February 15th, 2016, 8 years ago. And today we're publishing your 1000th episode. Now, to put that into perspective, that's 500 weeks of nonstop publishing without taking a break.
You didn't need to tell me that part. Oh, wait, is how many weeks?
500 weeks, right? I recently watched this really cool video that Claire Jefford has of you sharing and showing where this all began. Like, it's funny to watch that because, you know, when you hear entrepreneur story, especially in the tech industry, it started in the garage. For you, it started on the 3rd floor of your townhouse.
My process is that when a guest is about to come on the show, I will kneel down here in front of my big Post-it, and I have my laptop here, and I will Google this guest. And I first go with whatever information the guest has given me, but then I just put you out on the Google, and I Google you in YouTube, and I Google you in iTunes, and I find out anything I can. And then I come up with a bullet point list. And then what I do is when it's time for my podcast interview, I take my handy dandy vision board here, and I flip it around, and then I take that big Post-it and I stick it on here. And so then I come over here to my podcast desk and I close my cravat drapery, and then I sit here at the podcast desk, and I would normally have my laptop here, and then my Post-it is right there with all of my questions. And then what I have over here is my generic questions when I'm out of something to say, okay? So, and these are from Colleen Prim. Colleen Prim wrote to me November 6th, 16, and she said, questions that I would love you to ask. And they were so representative of the questions that I was getting that I put them here.
I think many people see you and they see the high energy and you're constantly on the go, but they don't realize how much you plan in advance. Where does that come from?
Well, I'm always been a planner is not quite the right word, especially if you're in my world. It's like, you know, okay, what time do I have to be at the airport? Well, that morning, someone tell me, right? So you can't actually say I'm a planner. I guess the distinction is I like to be well prepared. Now, if I've previously well prepared for something, then I can wing it. Like, I'm pretty sure I know how to get to an airport. Like, so I don't need to do it 5 hours ahead of time. Like, Vinny and I go round and round on this all the time. You know what I mean? But when I'm coming into an interview, I haven't interviewed you 5 times. I don't know you. And even if I know you from an event because I saw you and met you at High Point or something like that, I don't know your business. And so I know, like in my intro, it says, this isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Well, if I take 15 minutes to figure out who and what makes you tick, well, then that is 15 minutes of fluff. So my feeling of it was always, let me wade through all of the information I can gather on you, so I know the 3 or 4 things that we should be talking about. This isn't an exploration where halfway through I'm like, oh, that's a good thing. Let's talk about that. It's no, this is what it looks like you do well, or this is at this stage is what you tell me you do well. In the beginning, I had to go discover it. But that the motivation for the preparation is my nature. Like, look, I remember the first time I ran a triathlon. I've been running for 30 years, swimming for, 45 years at that point, and riding a bike for 40 years. But here I am reading books on a triathlon, like as if I'm like in the Olympics. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just wanted to do it. But I was like, what do I not know about this? What's a key thing about this that might impact this just being a better experience for me? I wasn't even interested in times. And so coming to an interview prepared or coming to a presentation that I give prepared. Yeah, I know a lot of people see me, walk in and blow on stage, but I know what I'm talking about. I'm ready for it. You know what I mean?
I remember it was January 2nd, 2000, must have been 2018. And I was taking my Christmas decorations down off of the porch. And I had heard about it. Somebody said, have you listened to this podcast? And I was like, not yet. So I turned it on, had my earbuds in, and I was like, whoa.
She's from the industry, she's done it. So she understands what designers go through. And her passion for what she's doing is just infectious.
LuAnn's, podcast just made the struggle real. It was just like, oh, people are talking about this. And she has very serious conversations on her podcast. I've heard designers share stories on her podcast that I'm not even sure I'd be comfortable sharing.
I love doing podcasts, especially when someone is interviewing you and they're asking you these kind of like off-the-cuff questions and they really want to know about you, your history, how you got started. Designers want to hear that. They want to know if they're sitting in their living room, they have one project, like how do you get from there to here, right? So I think she asks really poignant questions that really help people say like, okay, this is realistic. I can relate to this. And I think that's important.
What top 3 conversations do you feel like had a lasting effect on you outside of the business? Just people that you've spoken to that it was like this fundamentally changed you.
My dad was dying and his esophagus ruptured. And my dad lived in Florida by himself. My mom and dad divorced when I was in freshman year of high school. And so he moved to Florida and I get a phone call on Monday morning from my dad. And I am about to drive to Long Island to meet a designer for an all day. I'm going to take an hour and a half, 2 hours to drive there. I've got a whole house. I'm probably going to be on site for 3 or 4 hours. And then, coming back isn't going to be an hour and a half because it's rush hour. It's going to be 90 hours. And so, but he calls in the morning and he doesn't sound good, but he says, I'm in the hospital. I got here last night. And he can talk and all the things. And I'm like, well, what is it? And he said, well, they're not sure. They think that either it's an ulcer or pneumonia. And my mom would happen to be at my house. Now, my mom lives an hour and a half away, but she happened to be at my house. And I get off the phone and I look at her and I tell her. And I said, you think I should get on a plane? And the two of us talk it over. And she's like, Lou, if it's an ulcer or pneumonia, he's going to actually need you more when he comes out of the hospital. Like, let's be real. He lives alone, And I was like, okay. So I'm like, all right, so I'm going to go to Long Island. She says, yeah. I said, okay. So I go out there. I'm about to get to the house. It's like 11:45 and I call his room again. And just to say hi and are you okay? And it rings and rings and rings and he doesn't answer. And I keep calling and I keep calling. And now I've got to go into the house and I go into the house and it's on my brain. And I come out of the appointment at 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I call and I'm calling and there's no answer and there's no answer. So now I call my mom and I'm like, I can't get him all day. And she says to me, she's so smart. She says, you call the hospital and ask for the nurses station on his floor. She says, the nurses are the ones. And I was like, oh, okay. So I asked for the nurse's station, and the nurse answers, and I said, I'm trying to reach my dad, Don Schwartz, blah, blah, blah. And this woman, honest to God, Jude, Southern accent, I don't know where she was from, but it was way more southern than Florida. And she's like, oh, honey. She goes, your daddy was rushed to surgery. And I was like, wait, what? She goes, oh, yeah, his belly blew up. It was so big, and they don't know what's going on. So they rushed him to surgery. And I'm like, when was this? She's like, oh, about a half hour ago. And I'm like, do we know what's wrong? And she's like, I have no idea, sweetie. She said, but I'll pray for him. And I'm like, wait, what? And so I call my mom, and she's like, okay, I'm getting you a flight. So as I make the hour and a half ride home, I drop off the things, I throw clothes in, I turn around, I go to Newark. End of the story is I get to Florida at like 11 o'clock at night. My mom's so smart. She thinks again. She called my dad's neighbor, got a key to his house before the guy went to bed at 11 o'clock, so that when I came back from the hospital, I would have a key. I rent a car. I go to my dad's. I get the key from the neighbor. I go to the hospital. By the time I get to the hospital, it's like 12:30 at night. He's still in surgery. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I called at 4 o'clock and he was rushed to surgery, and he's still in surgery. End of the story is they finally come out, lots of details, his esophagus ruptured. Finally, 2 days later, they tell me he's going to die. They're like, no, less than 1% of all the people survive this. And that was a whole nother fun story, that conversation with the surgeon. Make sure he got a piece of my Jersey mind, the way he handled that conversation. But now I just stay in Florida because they said he's going to die. So I'm just going to stay in Florida. And it's day after day. And finally, Christy has to start first grade. And I'm deciding if I should come home for a day or two. And they ask me to sign a DNR before I leave. And I don't know what a DNR is. And she's like, oh, it's a do not resuscitate. I'm like, wait, so you want me to sign that you're not going to save my dad if something happens? And she goes, well, pretty much. And I'm like, see, that just kind of goes against my, And then she explained to me his chances of survival and like cracking his ribs open and doing all this crazy stuff. And ultimately I sign it. Another crazy story that went along with that. But I went and I called my Aunt Honey. And my Aunt Honey said to me a lot of wonderful things. But the thing that she said was, Lou, I know this is really hard. And I know that you're there by yourself and you're trying to do all the things and you're having all the conversations and you're scared for your dad. She said, but keep looking for your lessons. And I was like, wait, what? And she goes, Lou, I don't know where the lessons are. I don't know if it's a lesson for your own personal growth. I don't know if it's a lesson for how to handle a stressful situation. I don't know if it's a tactical lesson with dealing with hospital people. I don't know if it's a lesson on having a conversation with your dad, even if he is in a coma. I don't know what it is, but look for it. And Jude, my dad ended up being unconscious for 26 weeks. I'm sorry, 19 weeks. And then in the hospital, another 7 weeks, rehabbing and recovering and getting out. And every single day that I wanted to bawl my eyes out that my 57-year-old dad, who is not an old man, was in this situation, it immediately, literally flipped my thinking. And I literally do it in business today. This is so hard. This is so incredible. Why is this happening? And I'm like, wait a minute, quiet down. What is the universe lesson right here? And then it moves you into positive action as opposed to dwelling in anything, grief, despair, self-pity. I don't care put any emotion you want, any emotion that doesn't serve you. And so that was a significant conversation because it was meant for a personal lesson, but I've watched it over and over. I literally go, oh, boom, move to lesson. That's scary. That's hard. That was a big comeuppance, move to lesson. And it's very powerful.
Wow, that is powerful. I wonder, what is the biggest lesson you've learned in the scariest moment of the podcast?
It's going to sound crazy, but I think the scariest moment was that first getting on the Skype with Heather McManus. Like, it was like,
the heck am I doing here, folks? like, what am I going to do? Like, I had my list of questions, but I'm like, is this dumb? Are these silly? Does anybody care about this? Like, blah, blah, blah. So I think that was the scariest moment. And the lesson in that, I think, is kind of the lesson to me in the whole podcast, which is if you can see it, you can do it. If you can visualize it for yourself, then you're worthy of it. Don't say, why me? Well, it's you. You had the idea, so it's you. You can do it. You honor it in yourself. Honor the idea. Even if it's not an independent, you're the only one in the world with idea. Your spin on it is yours. Your spin on the idea is yours. You know, like the greatest novelists of all time don't say, I'm not going to write a book because somebody else wrote one. like, right? So if it's being in the design business or the window treatment business, or it's, you know, approaching somebody to collaborate on a licensing, or, you know, taking that leap of hiring a business coach or investing in marketing, people that invest in you to do their marketing, to create these videos. I'm sure designers think, who am I to have a video? Don't think that didn't go through my mind. You know, and there's Nigara going, wait, we need a docuseries about you now? And I was just like, Vin, it's not me. It's all of us. It's really what you said. What did you expect? Well, I expected to be a business. I expected to make money. I expected to have, you know, good content. I did not expect this community. And to me, you and I documenting that's like, I really didn't care if anybody watched it. That was for me. I built this with all of these people, and let's look at it together, and let's be in it together, and let's have it out there for all of time. So I think that is the biggest lesson for me personally of this podcast is I could dream this. So yeah, I could do it, and I should do it, and I'm entitled to do it. And you know what? Maybe it's going to be good and maybe it's not, but I'm going to try it.
Yeah. You took a leap. You took a leap of faith.
Yeah.
You know, I think of Corey Damon Jenkins, who's been a friend of the podcast, who took a leap of faith, 779 doors that he knocked on. Right?
Right? He didn't say, well, I guess I shouldn't do it.
Right.
When you know in your core, when you know you're supposed to do something, don't let anything step in your way of doing it. He didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people would knock on that many doors? A third of those doors, a tenth of those doors.
Well, initially when I opened the company for business, I thought that by putting it out on the website, on the internet, you know, putting my name out there as far as, you know, hoping for word of mouth business to kind of come in, that the doors would just open and I would just become known, you know, and that the work would just come raining down from heaven in copious amounts of opportunity. But that's just not what the universe had in mind. I had to knock on doors, like literally knock on 779 doors to find my first client. You know, bruises and cuts later, I am here and it all worked out. So I learned a great lesson.
What if he at the 7th or the 10th or the 25th door was like, I guess I'm not supposed to be an interior designer in Detroit because I'm Black and I'm not the right fit. I'm not the right look. Because that's what he was getting told, right? We both know that's what he was getting told. Not you, not here, not in this place. And he was just like, nope, me here and in this place. I know it in my gut and I deserve to keep doing it until it happens. And that's what you have to do. You have to have that conviction in yourself. You have to have that belief in yourself. And what I'm saying is, it's okay to have that. Like, you're not being who you think you are when you have that. You are actually just honoring who you are.
Yeah. You're honoring who you are. You're honoring that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Ivan Pinero in part 4, I don't know if you remember that story, but like 2 years, I think 2 or 3 years in business, and he's selling a $50,000
Not even, I don't
couch.
think.
Yeah, not even.
I think it was
But
like
he took a
18
leap.
months. Yeah.
He took a leap to invest in coaching, and you know, he had the confidence to sell a $50,000 couch.
And at one point, he was describing how he got an okay from a client on a $55,000 sofa. And I just like, after he finishes like part of the conversation there, I just had to take a moment and I looked out at the audience and I was like, first of all, do we have to give Ivan a high five for selling a $55,000 sofa in his second year in business? Like, are you kidding me right now with that? So can you pinpoint or figure out anything in your experience that gave you the confidence to push send on a six-figure design fee within the first couple of months of doing this?
I follow you, I follow Michelle, so just gaining that confidence. I don't know what, because we don't know what we start with a no. Yeah, it's just I know what to do. And of course, Michelle, I did her program in the bakery, so it was just put together my proposal for the room, like Michelle says, scope of work, just send it. Like I changed that number so many times. I was saying, if I hit send with this number, that makes me feel comfortable and easy, and I know they're gonna say yes, I'm gonna screw myself. But then I need to just keep going back to the process and for square footage just makes sense. I'm gonna be working on this probably for a very extended period of time. It's gonna take me this amount of hours. So it's sent.
So first of all, like I just have to hug you. I'm so happy for you and so proud of you that you did it. But I'm also hearing that from the beginning of your career, you invested in coaching, you invested in building collaborations and getting that support. And you invested in the rendering, which also enabled you to sell the $60,000 chandelier, the $35,000 bench, the $55,000 thing. And the thing about it is, you know how many people say to me, oh, I'm only 2 months or 1 year in business. Should I get a business coach? Should I invest in rendering? Should I invest in going to a conference? And it's like, the answer is yes.
So many conversations you've had with high-level interior designers, baby designers who are just doing exceptional things. They're not even really baby designers, but they're like 1-2 years in and they're doing things that sometimes the 10-year designer hasn't done. But what are the mistakes you're seeing or have watched designers make over and over that you're just like, oh, this shouldn't be a mistake you're still making?
Torturing me, right? Like you're torturing me. I think the biggest thing is that not really, and this is like a cliche, we've said it 15 gabillion times, but it's so true, is not understanding with complete clarity and confidence what you do as an interior designer is not normal. It is not normal because you do it and you love it and it comes easily to you. It is not normal. And when a designer says to me that they are repeatedly getting taken advantage of, quote unquote, taken advantage of by their client, the project scope constantly creeps. It doesn't matter if it's this project, that client, it happens all the time. I'm sorry. It's like I said to Sandra Funk on her Dark Night of the Soul. Like, if you have 6 projects and you get fired by 4 of them, it's not them. It's you. Like, it is you. And I see it in the Facebook groups. I hear it in the conversations. And the biggest disservice that a designer does for themselves is not actually recognizing they hold all the cards. They hold the cards in how someone perceives their value, and they hold the cards in drawing the line when someone doesn't act upon that value that they're getting, that they don't react and act in acknowledgement of that value. This is not an other problem. This is not the other person's problem. Right? And the thing is, what's interesting, Jude, I just heard it in my head, and I don't think I've ever used this analogy before, but anybody that has a daughter, right? She's 25, 30 years old, and every boyfriend or girlfriend that she's ever had, takes advantage of her. I mean, at some point, I'm sorry, there's something askew in her self-esteem, and you would see it in your daughter. You'd be like, why do you keep settling for these people? The point is that your kid, you see it in your kid. When your kid is not being valued, that they consistently are bringing home someone that doesn't cherish them. And they make excuses, not only to you, but to themselves and to their friends, why all the good things about that person. And you're like, but the core things are not there. And we need, as an industry, to do that for ourselves.
We need to understand the core value, that insane talent and superpower that you have to impact someone's life. And when you are not being valued, you are the one in charge of that. If I could just tap everybody on the head and have them get that, the industry would change on a dime. It would literally change on a dime.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you see the industry going? Like if that were to change, if interior designers would own more of the responsibility of like managing clients and how they manage those clients, where do you see the industry going? Because you work a lot with interior designers, especially in Chairman of the Board, right? Or LuAnn Live or Power Talk Fridays. You work with these designers intimately to try to get them to understand that. What would change if they were to see, okay, I can own this and it can help grow my business? What would?
Yeah. I mean, everything changes. It's like their profitability changes, the level of the clients that they have changed, the level of employees that they attract change, the level of the builders and the trades and the people that were, everything changes. Every single thing changes. It's no different than your life changes when you commit to a person who truly understands and cherishes you for what you are and who you are. Now everything is different. Just watching Netflix is more enjoyable. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter. It changes everything. And what I know is from the hundreds of conversations that I've had with designers who have experienced the before and after, they 1000% know it's in there. It's in between their ears. That change is their change to make. You don't, it's like I've always said to myself since I was a kid, I read it in some book somewhere. I don't know, Tony Robbins or Wayne Dyer. I have no idea which one of the gurus said it, but you can't change someone else. You can only change your reaction to that person. Like, if you think about that, I cannot change you, Jude. I can implore you. I can beg you. I can school you. I can yell at you. I can do anything. But if you're committed to doing something, I can't change you. But I can change my reaction to you. And when you have a client that's like, I want this for 50 cents less, and I want you to do 2 more rooms, and I want this, guess what? You can say no. That's the crazy thing. People come into the Facebook groups and they're like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? What am I going to say? And I'm like, how about the big word N-O? No is a complete sentence. Of course, I very rarely talk in the Facebook groups because that would be way too much inside voice.
No, but it's what designers need to hear. Like, you have the power to say no.
Yes.
Like it's a full sentence.
That's
it's a full sentence.
It is. No, and here's how it could work. See, that's my thing. That is also what will happen. Colleagues will encourage the person to say no by saying, red flag, run away. The reality is the way it gets handled is no and. It's no, and if you'd like to go forward, here's how it could happen. If that's agreeable, great. Let's keep moving. And if the client comes back and says, no, but I really want that. Nope. See, it's no and or no, but, right? It's not no, just run away. There's always a place to work out. 90% of the time, you can work out the agreement. So as much as what's so funny is because I think the industry has done an overcorrection, the knee jerk to no. Just run away, red flag, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. What would we have to do to make this a yes? But the thing is, when my chairman of the boards, any of them are listening, they know we've had hours of conversation about this. Like when they're in the thick of it with a client, it's like, what you asked me is no. However, under these agreements, we could come to a yes. And what's crazy is 8 out of 10 times they get to the yes. Most clients aren't looking to bend your back or your rules. They just don't know any different. And when we just say no and run, we haven't accomplished any more than if we had said yes and tortured ourselves. We're not making money. Okay. But when we say no and we understand what would it take to say a yes, and we take the time to explain that, now we're setting the expectations. We're educating the client. And yes, 20% of those clients are still going to go, I really wanted you to pick every room for $200 and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's awesome. Then you keep moving because here was my no. You can keep moving. But now you can say no with like peace of mind and clarity that you offered the way through and it was their option not to take it, right? That's different than just knee-jerk no.
Yeah, you talk about the 40 years at Window Works. What season of your life still gives you heart palpitations? Like that was difficult to get through. Because I want to push you a little bit on what it means to get through difficult moments. I think people see you and they see Superwoman, but I know
With
like
my green
there's
cape.
right. But I know there's moments where you do feel disappointed and you're just like, why am I doing this? Or
Yeah.
what's the point? And I want to first start with thinking through like the last 40 years of like, how do you, what still gives you heart palpitations? Like, how did I even get through that?
Mm.
And then I kind of want to follow that up with the last 8 years of the podcast. When were you last disappointed? Or maybe not last disappointed, but there was a disappointment that took you, that rocked you. You had a rock your knee moment, like you like to call it, right? But let's first start with like, what season of your life you still think about that gives you heart palpitations?
I mean, I remember when we hit the first recession. And we started in business 81, 80. Vinny started December 81. I came in the fall of 82, so 6-7 months later. And so this would have been 92, 93, 92, 93. Christy was in preschool, so she would have been 3 and or 4, depending what winter it was. And it was the first recession that we were going to face in the business. And the thing about it is at the time, it's just like everything. You see it on the news, you hear it, there's grumblings, you have a bad month, and it's like, but then you have a good month. And, there's a runway to when things will ultimately get bad. The thing was, in that first recession, we did not do anything on the runway other than ride on it. What I know in hindsight, not in real time, in hindsight, what I know is that Vin and I are both people with extreme optimism. Forget it's half full. The cup is flowing over the top. And isn't that awesome? It's not a spill. It's not making a mess. It's like, look at all of that. That's great. So that's one. We're extreme optimists, and we're together married as optimists. So that's, if you have at least one realist in the group, that might be better. Okay. The second thing is that we both separately from our own upbringing have this faith that you put it at my feet and I will get it done. And again, you don't often have two people in a marriage that have this same thing. And these are great qualities until they're not. Okay. And then the third thing is that we both have a high tolerance for risk. Also awesome, unless you're both the same, right? So the thing is, we roll into this first recession ignoring things and going, we'll dig it out. Oh, that's fine. We can overcome that. And it's not as bad as they say it is, and it'll all be good. Well, the thing of the matter is, Jude, is that there got to be a point, however many months into it, which was several at that point. Maybe it was 8, maybe it was 12. I don't remember. But we were beyond meeting our bills. I remember the Star Ledger in New Jersey was like 25 cents a day for the Monday through Saturday, and was like 95 cents for the Sunday. And I will never forget sitting at our kitchen table and him going, well, I guess we could cancel the newspaper. And I'm like, well, what will that save? And he's like, well, $9.98, whatever it was. And I was like, are we there? He's like, we're there. I'm like, whoa. Whoa, we've got a kid in college, a kid in high school, a kid in middle school, and a preschooler, right? And I'm like, and we're talking about $10. And so ultimately it got so bad that we are paying for college with a credit card. Because, again, optimists, we're not like going to pull our kid out of college and have a hard talk and say, sweetie, take a semester off. I don't know, make a couple of bucks and contribute to the family. Nah, we'll figure it out. Lou and Vin, we'll figure it out. But it does get so bad that he sits me and Billy down and he's like, we don't have enough money. Like we've been robbing Peter to pay Paul for months. We're overextended, and I got to go get a job. And we're like, wait, what? And he says, well, between the three of us, I'm the only one with a college degree. He said, and I am the highest salary on the business. And if I get a job that has health benefits, we not only take my salary off, but we can take Lou and our family's health benefits off the business. And he said, and leave you and Lou to get a salary, and we'll try and rejigger the business. And so he does. And he goes and gets a job as vice president of franchise sales for Decorating Den. And you know, when Vinny turns a quarter, Jude, he turns a corner. That dude turns a corner. I'm going to tell you what. And he had to go dig in, and he had to focus. And he left the house 4:00 in the morning every Monday, drove to Bethesda, Maryland, and came back either Wednesday or Thursday, either Wednesday night or Thursday day, depending on what was happening at corporate. And I had to run the business, take care of the kids, take care of all the kids at work, take care of all the vendors, do all the sales, do all the things, and run the books, by the way. Like, run the books. Like, you guys hear me? Like, and it's the truth. I know what I'm doing. I don't like doing it. I don't know as well as Vinny does. I don't know as well as Michelle Williams does, but I know enough, right? And he took that job probably in the fall. And that winter, New Jersey had 23 snowstorms, 6 inches or greater. And that's significant for multiple reasons. Number one, the middle schooler lived with her mother. The high schooler lived with us. The college kid obviously lived at school. And then I have the baby, the 3-year-old. And so the high schooler is out to school every day at 7:30. I have to shovel the driveway out. But I have a little kid that you can't leave a little kid alone in the house. What if they fall? What if they crack their head? What if they, catch their shirt on something and they're hanging upside down? So I have this major driveway that I've got to clear out. And I literally every day play this game with her. Christy, stand up on the bench in mommy's bedroom and look out the window and clap for mommy and give mommy high fives. And I'm out there shoveling and looking for the little head. And I can't tell you the number of times the little head goes away. I'm like, come back. Like, where are you? Then the head would pop up. Then it would go away. And there were like, how many times in 23 snowstorms did I have to go in the house, take the boots off, find the little head sitting 3 feet away from the bench? The little head was never hurt. The little head was never in trouble. But I'm not living with that on my head. It was ridiculously stressful. We were at 90 and 120 days. We go into the spring. I managed to get through the entire winter. We get into the spring. Sales are in the tank. I am pleading with installers in the winter to take the trucks out in the van to do installation so I can get balance due so I can make payroll. It was ridiculous. I'm putting vendors off every week so I can pay employees. I'm selling my soul, okay? Every conversation. I know, and all this and all that. And it was, the thing about it, Jude, it was the physical doing of it was so difficult and so stressful, which was one thing. But then there was the secondary, like, if this business crumbled at this moment and went out of business, I knew then that it was the result of 18 months of bad planning and not seeing the thing. But all of our friends and our family, would they have been like, well, Vin left and there it went, down the drain? And like, I'm not going to run around to everybody and go, no. Why don't you think he had to leave? He had to leave because he also mismanaged it going into it. Like, this is, but like, the pressure. And I was just like, no, this cannot die on my watch. This 10-year business cannot die on my watch. It would have been hard enough to put a business in the coffin if we were doing it together. But to have it be on me, and I was showing up to appointments a block away, crying my eyes out from so much stress, literally crying, and then trying to get a hold of myself and literally walking up going, you have to go in this house because you need a deposit. I don't care if it's a $400 blind, you need that $200 to pay a bill. And I would stand there and I would knock on the door, and Jude, I would say, please answer, please don't answer. Please answer, please don't answer. Because if they didn't answer, then it wasn't me not doing my job. It was the universe going, no, you should go back to your car and cry some more. And if they did answer, then I knew. And of course, everybody always answered. I'm not the Fuller Brush lady. Of course, I had a darn appointment. They were home, for crying out loud. And it ultimately, I guess that spring, I finally revealed to Vinny how hard it was, because I also knew he was like, we're not built for corporate, me or Vinny. We don't follow the rules. We don't take well to you telling us what to do. And I do remember just sitting down and just being like, the thing is, Vin, if I could see a way out, I could hang on. But I'm not seeing the way out. It's like been, I think he worked for them for like a year and a half or something like that. I said, I get 2 steps forward and I'm 3 steps back. I have a good month of sales and then, a bad month. And I just said, I'm not seeing it. And I don't know how much longer I can hang on. And I know I have to. There's no choice. Like, who are we kidding? It's not like, okay, let's just go get that $1 million in the bank that we've been sitting on for fun. And he went the only time in his entire life, he borrowed money from his father. And I remember he said to me, well, I'm going to ask, and he looked at me and said, I'll have to ask Dad for the money. And I don't think I knew then what a big deal it was, except that the way he said it. And I was like, oh, that's not like asking my mom for money. Like, my mom would have had 25 cents. She'd be like, here's 26, but his dad was old school. He was born in 1912. Like, he was Depression. He was like, you make it work, kid. But he went to his dad and he just said, I need this to tide my business over. And he borrowed the money and we put it in. And that he probably stayed at Deck Den at that point, probably another 7 or 8 months, but just getting us, I don't know, did it get us from 120 to 60 days? I don't know if it got us from 120 to 30 days. I don't remember it, but it was like, okay, all right, now let's just go. You know what I mean? And it was just like big girl panties, pretend the rest of the last 7, 8 months, 9 months didn't happen. You're on a path.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you saying is you didn't wake up like this, right? The way people see you today, right? They see you as the woman who can get through anything, that not much phases you, but you didn't wake up like this. And that's why I wanted to ask that, is like, what's the season of your life that still gives you heart palpitations?
Yeah.
Because as we're recording this, 2024, economy is rocky. And many entrepreneurs are not feeling as great as they once did. And you said something that I think, even as I've been out meeting with designers, talking with designers, you said, I'm not seeing a way out. And I think many people that are running their firms today are like, they're scared and they're not seeing a way out.
See, I would challenge that. Yeah, I would challenge that, because the thing is, not that there isn't anyone that's in the situation where they're 60, 90, 120 days on all their bills and not being able to make payroll and stuff. But what I know is the hindsight lesson was that as soon as it feels like, I'm not as busy as I was, you have to do things. And see, we didn't do the things. What you have to do is you have to fine tooth comb. By the time we were asking if we should cancel the Star Ledger, we were already way late on our bills. But when the 2008 recession came in January of 2007, when it was like, hey, this is a little funny, I wonder what's going on here, Vinny was slicing. He was slicing everything. He was like, everybody, you get 1 tank of gas a week, make it work. Like, and here's the gas station. Vinny would every Monday morning at the meeting tell you the cheapest gas within the radius of the showroom, and every van better go fill up at that gas or you're not getting reimbursed for it. Because he was like, I'm not just going to pay for you to get gas anywhere if it's 30 more cents a thing. And the thing is, in the January, February of 2007, I remember people looking at us like, you're out of your minds. You're out of your minds. And I'm like, but we're not, see? But you see, we're actually not. And when you make those cuts, like simple things we all know in our personal life, everybody raise their hand if they have a health club membership that they haven't walked through the doors in 3, 6, 8, 9 months. This is the time. Cut that fat in your business. You have those expenses in your business that you just let roll. Like, we just did a tech audit. we were paying, like, and I'm embarrassed to say it because I know this lesson. We were paying for Textaful for 5 years. And I said to somebody finally in January, I'm like, do we ever get anybody on the email list from it? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, how about check? So I think it was $59 a year, but we hadn't got an email sign up from it in like 4 years. So it's like that's only $49 or $59, but it's also my $59. And it would have been the same if it was $59 a month. I promise you. So when we had the 2008 recession. So I said January 2008, because it happened in October. The crash really went in October. But that January 2008, it was the hard line audit of cell phone plans, where we buy our gas, re-getting insurance quotes, re-getting all of the things, literally line by line, cutting out the fat, so that when it finally got hard in August and September, we had to let Kimberly go. But when we let Kimberly go, as difficult as it was done with the knowledge that we had done everything we could before this. We weren't needlessly wasting our money in other places. And now we needed a big chunk to go, or it wasn't going to work. And if we didn't have employees at that point, it would have been owner cuts. But when you have employees, you had to look around and say, who's the duplicate? At that point, she was not anywhere near trained to be me at that point, but that was her role. She was hired to learn to be me. She was in the job a year and a half. And I'm like, I'm still me. I'm still here doing me. So you're extra, and it was heartbreaking because we love her. And thankfully we got her back.
Yeah, that's the part I wanted to add. Thankfully you got her back. I think it was heartbreaking in the moment. Many people can't see a way out, but then you do the hard thing. And luckily you were able to bring Kim back, where she is killing it.
Yeah, I think it was 2010. We went and, I called her and I was like, any chance you'll come back? She's like, yes. But I think the clarity on that is, it is never easy to let an employee go for reasons that have to do with, operational expenses, right? Like if you let somebody go because they're not doing a good job, that's not easy either, but a whole lot easier. But the thing is, as much as Vinny and I angsted over that, it probably took us 2 or 3 weeks to actually do it. We kept thinking, is there another way? Is there something else that can happen? Blah, blah, blah. But if you're feeling the ground shaking underneath of you as you're listening to this in 2024, go get ruthless with expenses and ramp up marketing. That's the other thing that we didn't do at that time. We didn't pedal to the floor on marketing. And, there's a lot of ways. Like back then, marketing was, you had to run an ad in the paper. You had to put a coupon in a coupon book. Now you can double down. If you actually are slow, then double down on social. You can do that for free. So if you've already gotten to the point in your business where it's critical and you're crying, different story. But if you're like, this feels a little crazy, it's like, yeah, guess what? It probably is. Go do.
You know how frustrating it can be when your clients cannot understand or visualize your design concepts, right? Even though you've given swatches, drawings, mood boards, and you've used software like AutoCAD and SketchUp, and you've tried to make sure they understand what they are approving. Well, Duke Renders has the answer for that. They offer 100% accurate, do-it-for-you 3D renderings that present your designs in their entirety. This way, you can make sure that your client fully understands and visualizes your design before execution. This saves you headaches, this saves you time, this saves you money, it saves you that back and forth. Do you want to learn how you can start saving these headaches? Well, book a quick intro call to start getting your designs in beautiful photorealistic renderings. Go to dukerenders.com/LuAnn and you will get 30% off your first order.
That's dukerenders.com/LuAnn. Do this now. Just book the call now and see what's going on over there, because this offer is valid for just this week. Something.
I think as people are listening to this, if you're listening to this in 2024, like that's the critical piece is like come up with a plan, follow it.
Yeah.
When we were filming the docuseries, I think of the designers that we got to interview, like Cheryl Luckett, who came up with the Project 36 plan, right? Or the one that always gives me goosebumps, because I've watched the docuseries again recently, where I watch it as if I hadn't seen it before. And the one that always gives me goosebumps is Megan Moulton's story.
Oh my goodness,
right?
I know.
Right? And she met Michelle Morgan at High Point. I don't think she was even a designer at the point yet. She was thinking about becoming a designer. And then Michelle
Megan wasn't a designer yet.
Yeah, Megan wasn't a designer.
Right,
and Michelle told her how successful she was and the things that she was doing. And Megan was like, I want to be just like her. Yeah. And in 5 years, she's sitting in a room, right? Power Talk Friday.
At a multiple $1 million plus mastermind at Power Talk Friday with only 25 to 24 designers in a room. And they're two of them, right?
And Megan Moulton, who, I mean, this little lady, she's another podcast poster girl. She started her business 5 years ago and went from 0 to a gabillion, has multiple revenue streams, is killing it in every stretch of the imagination. At the celebration dinner, Megan Moulton looks over at Michelle and says, Michelle, I want to share with you. And at that moment, Michelle just literally knew exactly what Megan was going to say.
I don't know if you remember this, but my first...
You're not, oh my God, really?
My first mark...
Really? Okay. Okay.
No.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
But they had spent 8 hours together, granted not at the same table, but 8 hours together, and Michelle had not made the connection.
It was my first market, October 2017. I was working my full-time job.
It seems like so much longer.
And I came
oh my
to
God,
market.
that's hysterical. How funny is that you would need the same person?
That's
crazy. And you were so helpful. You were so cute about it. You were really helping.
I met you and you inspired me. You were so giving. And I was so wanting to learn.
Oh my God.
You told me about your business and how successful you were, and I'll never forget. I said, one day I want to be as successful as her.
And here Megan recounted to her that she had met Michelle at her very first High Point in 2017 and found herself sitting next to her and started to ask her a question about running an interior design business. And Michelle shared her heart with her. She sat there and she spoke to her and gave her tips and gave her advice. And Megan said, I have recounted the advice that you shared with me and the inspiration you gave with me, and I have looked up to you for the last 5 years.
You started this journey when you were about 20 years old.
Yeah.
What would you tell your 20-year-old self looking at the 40 plus years now that you have not only been in WindowWorks, but starting the podcast? What would you tell yourself? Exciting windows, right? Yeah. What would you say to LuAnn, who is 20 years old, who has no clue what's coming next, but is going on this journey?
It's funny because I know what she should be told, but I actually wonder if it would have benefited me to know it. Okay. So what she should be told is there's something burning in you. I know it's burning in you. I know that now you're, working in this window treatment company, and yes, you're a partner, and yes, it's your family business, and it's all these things, but I know you're thinking, this is it. I'm going to sell blinds for the rest of my life. Like, I would look at her and go, I know there is something burning in you, but you need to be schooled. You need all of these years to be ready to do the thing you were meant to do, which is to help other people do the same thing, to create a profitable business, to be the master of their domain, to be the one who says the lights are on or the lights are off, we're going, we're stopping, all the things. And I would have said, I know, sweetie, you think you already know it, but you don't. And even at 30, I would have said, and you still don't know it yet. You know what I mean? At 40, I've been like, I know, but there's still more to learn, and you will be so much better for it if waiting for the season of your life when it all will come together in your brain, and every part of you will then be this thing that you are just feeling at 20 burning. So I know that's what I could have been told, but I think there is something to be said for not knowing that. And always, everything I did, I was like, is this the greatest thing I'm supposed to do? I'm supposed to be the number one salesperson for all window treatments in the whole WindowWorks chain. Okay, is this the thing I'm supposed to do? Hunter Douglas is supposed to recognize me as a leader in the industry and have me speak at their conference. So because I didn't know that I was gathering all the experience and the knowledge and the information to finally get to a point, I kept pushing myself out of boxes to figure out what the next thing should or could be. And then there was the moment where I was like, oh, it's just WindowWorks. And that I wrote about in my first book. There was a point when I was like, oh, this is not a bad thing that you just sell blinds. You're part of a family business that's created a legacy in your community. And I had a moment where I was like, that's it. The line stops. We ride this out to the sunset. There's going to be, a funeral one day, and everybody in Livingston will come out and be like, oh my God, she sold drapes to me, my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother. She's amazing. Right? I really believe that was the thing. And even in hindsight, I know that I needed that aha and that true moment of gratitude that lasted until I did my last window treatment sale, to recognize that really was a great thing that we did, and it continues on. And so to not have that, these were wasted years. It's like, nope, this taught me a lot about community. It taught me a lot. I bring a lot of those lessons to the podcast. To me, when I walk into a designer event, and I just had it when I was in Long Island recently, and I said hello to somebody, and she said to me, I can't believe you remember my name. And I said, well, I try to. I don't always, but I try to. And to me, it's no different than when I would walk into my customer after 5 years of not being there, and easier, by the way, because I was in her house and met her and learned her thing. But it's that was a very tangible lesson that brought from WindowWorks, is these people are people that, whether it's a free podcast, they're giving up their time to be with you. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge it in a way that's meaningful. Say hello, look in their eyeballs, try and remember something about them, So yeah, that would have been the advice, but I almost would say, but don't give it to me. Because I wouldn't have wanted to take the fire away.
No, but I think in some ways what I hear you saying is that you kept looking for it. It's almost like you knew you had the fire and you kept looking for, is this it? Is this it? Is this it?
And I just want to also say that is for everybody and anybody. There are seasons. So if someone, is listening and they're with little kids right now, and they're like, I'm meant to be the next Martha Stewart. I'm meant to be the next Shay McGee. Okay. But maybe it's not right now. Okay. It doesn't have to, there were times in my life where I thought, how can I be whatever I'm supposed to be if I'm in WindowWorks with kids and all the things? So it's the hindsight of understanding, if you believe in yourself and you believe in the gifts and you develop your own gifts and you pay attention to the lessons all along the way and all the things that you do, they're all still going to be there. Whether it's 15 years from now when your kids go off to college, or it's 5 more years till they go to college, or maybe right now you're at a season where you're taking care of parents and you're like, for crying out loud, I finally got my kids in college and now I'm taking care of my parents. Well, either find a way through or know that it's not time yet.
After 1,000 episodes, why should someone keep listening?
Oh, Jude, come on. Okay, seriously, listen to me. You don't know what you don't know. How many miles did I run? I ran a book on triathlon. I probably had 1 million miles logged at that point, right? But I mean, legitimately, listen, I will tell you this. If you've listened to the show from the beginning and you still haven't documented your process and systems, then just admit to yourself you're not going to do it. Like, just skip those shows. I mean, like, honestly, right? Because by now, there are so many things that have been said over and over in a different way by a different person. And if you haven't tried it any of the first 300 times we've talked about it, then you know what? I don't know. Be a senior designer for another firm and do your superpower in design and don't run the back end. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. But if you have listened to it for many years, why do you keep listening? I'm going to tell you, 40 decades, God help me, 40 years in business. I don't think I've ever had an interview where I haven't learned something. Like a thing, one little, oh, yeah. And it could be a nuance. We just had our Exciting Windows conference. As you and I are recording, we were last weekend in Dallas. And Rebecca Munster is one of our members, and she owns a window treatment workroom in the Philadelphia area down there. I think. I always forget where she's from. Rebecca, I always forget, so don't be insulted. And she told us about her green, yellow, red system for internally communicating amongst team members when a project is smooth sailing, when a project is like, yeah, sort of, we've got some problems, and you, Rebecca, as the owner, should probably know about it. And red, when it's like, sweetie, stop everything you're doing, sit down and fix this problem for us or with us, right? And it was just so illuminating, the clarity. And I can't tell you how many people in the Exciting Windows Facebook group all week are like, already put my red, green, and yellow in place. The team is like coded everything, blah, blah, blah. And it's a nuance of something you've been doing that makes your life easier. So I don't know if you're going to get permission to do or be something. I don't know if you're going to get clarity on a system because somebody says it a different way. I don't know if you're just going to, get the pat on the back when you hear that, like, wow, I'm already doing that. And I actually feel like I'm doing it better than that person. Well, then, yay, you. Stop what you're doing, high five yourself, and look at your team and say, yay, we're amazing. Those are important moments to acknowledge. A lot of times people tell me they will come to LuAnn Live or Power Talk Friday as much to find out what they don't know as to validate what they are doing and what they do know.
It's been an amazing ride. I thank you for this opportunity to even ask you the questions, to be a part of the podcast, right? You've had me on 4 times, and now I got to turn it around and ask you the questions so that people can hear you in a way that they haven't heard you before.
Okay, first of all, can I just say, especially if you watch this video, as opposed to just listening to it as an audio, I have to say I'm just a little extra. Like, whoa, it's so funny because I think about, there's this thing that happened the very first time I ever gave a keynote. When I was done, a bunch of interior designers and window treatment professionals were coming up to me to say hello and speak to me, which is so much fun. Maybe you were one of those there at the IWCE in Tampa. And I remember one person said to me, I just love your energy. And I remember smiling and thinking, that's so nice, right? But the thing is, it became a thing. It became a thing that the next time I was on a stage, somebody would say something about my energy. It's great. I love it. It's nuts, whatever. And then it just kept happening every single time. And the thing was, I remember telling Vinny, I almost feel like one of those baseball players where I have to do all the, things before I get up to bat, because what if after like 8, 9, 10 times somebody doesn't say, I love your energy? Well, so far the streak hasn't been broken in 8 years, which is super exciting. But I have to tell you, when I see it, it's a little crazy pants. You guys put up with me. When I watched this, I was like, take a breath, lady. Anyway. First of all, as I get serious about this episode, my huge thanks to you, Jude. I am just so ridiculously grateful that this podcast brought us together. From being the expert teaching me to tell my story over and over, to being my incredible documentarian, to becoming my beloved friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all of it, including and not limited to how much you always care as much about what I put into the world as I do. And so it's evidenced by what you've done here. Thank you. And if you've been listening or you've watched the docuseries and you're thinking, how can I work with Jude? Well, I got to tell you, you can. He has created a free download for you. Storytelling for interior designers. This includes 10 storytelling prompts that will help you find the stories that you already have, but you might not have realized it. He gives you the exact steps on how to use the stories with every stage of your client's experience with you. He helps you discover how to transform your boring portfolio pictures with stories to make them come alive and resonate and make them memorable. There's tons of value in this. Go to JudeCharles.co/trust. That's JudeCharles.co/trust to get your free download of the story prompts. It's so funny because recently Nicole Heimer and I were talking and she said to me, I feel so lucky that I have met so many incredible people in this industry over the last 8-9 years. And I screamed, yes, 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 I know it. I feel the same. When I think of all the people like Nicole and Jude and so many of you others that I never would have met. I mean, that's literally crazy that how could I not, right? And it's really also interesting because just last week I was driving to the beach house to meet Vincenz and I was listening to a Mel Robbins podcast and I had picked out an episode on hacks for a healthy brain. But when it's done, the second episode just rolled on, right? So I didn't pick the next episode. And the title of the next episode was How to Build Closer Friendships and Get Rid of Loneliness. And I thought, but I'm driving and I'm in my head, so I left it play. She started talking right off the bat how into adulthood, it could be hard to make meaningful friendships. And all I could think was how ridiculously lucky I am. In these last 1,000 episodes, all of these interviews, all of these people, all of you that I've met in the interviews, at speaking engagements, at panel discussions, at Power Talk Friday, I am making beautiful friendships. And my next thought was the one that I shared with Nicole. How could it ever been that I wouldn't have met you? It's just bonkers. So the thing is, this podcast was meant to be. You there listening were meant to be in my life. And I know it to be true. This podcast episode's no different than any other. We're going to talk about our takeaways, okay? Here we go. My number one takeaway is learning from hard things. Consciously asking yourself, what is the lesson you are meant to be learning right now in the project that blew up last week or last year? Because it's never too late to go back and look for that lesson. The benefit is there, whether you figured it out in real time or you figure it out in hindsight, because what you learn from it will always help you in the future. It will help you avoid that hard thing the next time. But my lesson and my aha and my little tangible share with you is I have found that when you look for it in that moment, in the hard moment, that it helps me move forward into taking action. It could be a small action, but it always refocuses me towards the silver lining, kind of, if you will, which helps me immediately process trouble to growth, to convert trouble to growth. Okay. Doing this moves us from that myopic view at the end of our nose to the big picture. It moves you to what the thing is that you can do about the something, to the parts that, we have control over. And that's powerful. So whether it is the constant frustration of the employee who never does their work on time, or maybe it's how you continue to look at your QuickBooks knowing you really don't know what you're looking at. What is the hard thing that you are facing? What is bringing you to your knees? Look for the lesson in it. As I said, try doing it the next time you get stomach punch, because I'd love to know if you have an aha when you do that.
Okay. Now, going to the interview here, this period in our life, that first recession for Vin and me, it was insane. It was hard, and we got through it. So the second aha that you're looking for is bad things happen, but you can get through them when you have a mechanism for getting through it. So for me, it's look for the lesson. Maybe this will work for you too. I hope it does. And the thing I like about this advice that my Aunt Honey gave me, which Vin never heard, didn't know, he did it instinctively without ever having the conversation with her. There has not been a single economic downturn since that first one that we went through that he has not expertly guided us through it. Because I know he did. He looked for the lesson. And the lesson was act sooner than you think and act as soon as you sense the change in the economy. And the practical advice that Vin would give you for an economic downturn, in a nutshell, get ruthless with expenses and lean into marketing. The thing is, I did an episode back at the beginning of COVID when we all thought our businesses were going to tank. And I recounted in that episode the lessons learned from that experience and all the lessons that I've learned since then that I've watched Vin do in our businesses anytime things get a little sketchy. So we will link that episode in the show notes in case you're in a place where the ground is moving under you. I want you to know there are steps that you can take. Okay. Number 2, takeaway from this conversation is, what do you know about you or about your business in your gut, in your core? No one looking, no one hearing your inside voice. Do you know what you are doing is what you are meant to be doing? And if you are you like Corey Damon Jenkins, knocking on 779 doors to get what you want, to get what you know you deserve? Success is not delivered to us. It is born, nurtured, fed, raised by us, by our belief in ourselves. We are all going to get knocked down. You are going to have doors slammed in your face. But with each slammed door, do you realize that you're getting closer to the open door? That's the thing. Do you believe that? Because that's what it takes. It takes a belief in who you are, what you do, who you do it for, how you do it, and why you do it. Make no mistake about that. And I know as sure as I'm sitting here, if you can dream it, you can do it. You will have to work for it, but it's all the sweeter because you have. Honor who you are. Show up for you. You got this. All right. My third takeaway is to invest in yourself. If you have such a profound belief in your mission, your talent, your passion, and then you feed it and you nurture it, you need to then invest in yourself. I have said this to you dozens of times over the years. If your beautiful little boy or your niece wanted to play soccer, you'd never say, oh, that's great. Here's a ball. Drop him off at a field every day for a week or a year or 10 years and come back and just look at him and say, did you learn soccer? Are the scouts calling for you yet? No. What would you do? You'd get them all the right equipment. You'd sign them up for a team. You'd get them some one-on-one coaching. You'd get them a gym membership to lift weights to get stronger. You'd sign them up for the camps, the clinics, the travel things, the travel teams, all the things. But somehow we open a business with a ball in an empty field. We don't line up the equipment, meaning a sound bookkeeper, a CPA, and a lawyer. We don't do the group coaching or the one-on-one because we think we shouldn't do it yet. We're not ready for it. We don't go to the classes, the conferences, because I have to wait till I'm a little more in business to do it, right? Like, no, right? But then we also do wonder why we can't dribble the ball down the field. You would never set a child you loved up for failure by just dumping him in the middle of something and say, hey, kid, make it work. But yet, have you done that to yourself, right? Now, you saw in the docuseries clip, Ivan Pinero. He listened to the podcast, took the lessons to heart. He then hired Michelle Lynn to coach him. He, from the get-go in his business, invested in himself. He didn't wait 1 year or 3 years or 5 years to see if maybe he would figure it out. And the thing is, it is exponentially paid off for his business. He's successful from the beginning. It's paid off in experience, in profitability, in industry contacts, in landing big projects, and working with clients that value what he does. Okay? So my advice is learn the things you don't know how to do. There's no shame in not knowing, but it is a shame if you don't change that. None of us know everything. We all have gaps. We all need help. The difference is now you're the grown-up. You have to give yourself the gift of knowledge, of education. There's no one to sign you up. You have to step up, say you're worth it, and sign yourself up. Number 4 takeaway is a page from Michelle Morgan's book, okay? Again, from the docuseries clip. Imagine her sitting at High Point. She's probably busy, about to do something, thinking about where she's going, and Megan Moulton comes up to her and she starts speaking to her completely by chance. And Michelle shares her advice and her encouragement with nothing on her mind other than helping this young girl. Do that. Be giving. Be helpful to your fellow industry peers. Okay. One day you'll be on the giving end of that advice and sharing, and one day you'll find yourself on the receiving end. It all goes in a circle. Keep the circle going. We all need to be a force for good in the industry. It's up to us. It's our responsibility. My number 5 takeaway is to know very clearly that your self-respect is within you. The respect you have for yourself is yours to have or yours to give away. When you respect yourself and you know in your heart that you deserve it, you will not give it away. For me, the distinction is like I said during the conversation with Jude. I cannot change another person. I can change my reaction to you, okay? But that's enough. Just changing your reaction, that switch, it's enough. So what I mean is someone can show us disrespect. They can discount our value. They can underestimate our talent, our ability, our skill. But you know what? That's just simply their opinion. It's not a fact. It's a story in their mind. And you cannot, should not ever take that opinion or that story as your own. What do I tell you all the time? Know what you will do and what you will not do. Know your boundaries, know your standards, know your services, your fees, your process, and set the rules by them. When someone doesn't want to do it, they don't want to do what you want them to do within the structure of your business. They don't want it to work that way. That's their prerogative. But that doesn't mean it's a call for you to rewrite how you do it. It's only a call for you to re-explain why and how you do it. You are the leader. You are the expert. That client called you to do a project, and that client needs to know the way you will do it and why you do it, and you explain it from your experience. This is the proper way to do it. This is the way to get to success. Your highway, your rules. You know the highway. You know the turns. They don't. So when they want to make a turn, make a change, they don't realize how that'll impact 2 or 3 steps forward from now. But you do. So stand there in it. They can always choose to disengage. They can say, I don't like those rules. I don't like that highway. That's okay. They can choose to disengage, but they cannot choose for you to change your methodology. Protect your self-respect. You have earned it. And I'll share a tip with you here. What I know to be true is when you are confident in your processes, in your fees, in your value, there actually is never a problem anymore. It turns. It will never feel like someone isn't choosing you. You will know right off the bat, it is not the right fit, period. It'll never feel like someone is trying to make you do something different because you're just like, I don't do it different though. Like you don't get rocked by it. You don't get, maybe I should think about it. Maybe I should change. No, once you know and you're confident, like I said, in your process, your fees, your value, this is a problem in your rearview mirror then. Okay. So, but you have to do the work to be the business owner who knows their process, their fees, and their value, and has earned your own self-respect. because when that happens, the rest falls in place. The final takeaway for me in this celebration and this conversation of 1,000 episodes has to be consistency and the importance of consistency. What did Jude say to me? It was 500 weeks. 500 weeks of deadline-driven work. 500 weeks of one episode never not airing. I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing. And the thing what I want to share here about consistency is, to make no mistake about it, this only happened because I have amazing people surrounding me. Okay. My aunt and uncle, who edit the show and have standards for the audio production beyond what I ever would have, could have, or put myself to on my own. Okay. The way they show up every week, every month, every year, sick, busy, vacation, never missing a single beat, showing up to their work for my podcast with a single-minded focus on doing their best every show, every time. I have to tell you, it's remarkable, frankly. It'll never be possible for me to ever express the depth of my gratitude to my aunt and uncle, because I tell you 1,000%, without them, this never would have gotten off the ground, let alone flown. And the thing is, all these years in, the team is bigger and everyone has become as indispensable to me. From my mom, who does my bookkeeping, texting me when I need to know if a bank account needs attention, to coordinating all of the credit card receipts from every Power Talk Friday, LuAnn University, LuAnn Live, as well as paying all the people to do all the things. It's a lot of financial details. And I am very lucky to be able to oversee it, knowing that she has it handled. And then let's talk about Diana, my special projects manager / marketing coordinator, doing all the things that take research, contemplative thought, critical thinking, analysis. Diana gets into the weeds and gets things done. I don't even know if I could describe it to you, but having a special projects person is awesome, because we all walk around with all of these ideas and these things that we want to do in our business. And we look at all the eyeballs and we're like, oh my God, they're so busy doing all these things. And Diana is like the person that you're just like, hey, what do you think about this idea? And she's a great sounding board. And we kick it around, and that's like, okay, off to the races she goes. And she puts her creative spin on everything she does. And I'm just really incredibly lucky to have you, Diana. Then there's Mariali, my executive assistant. Okay, she is first and foremost the manager and the wrangler of LuAnn. Right? Now, if you are old enough to have ever watched the TV show MASH, Mariali is literally radar. She knows what I need, when I need it, before I even know I need it. And I'm not exaggerating. I wish I were. It's so funny because the executive assistant I had before, Mariali, worked with me. She was a sharp lady. She had been the executive assistant for the head of pediatric oncology at a huge hospital in Texas before she worked with me. And I 1,000% know that both she and I expected that being my EA was going to be fairly straightforward, kind of a, ice skate for her. Well, the thing is, after 2 weeks of working for me, I sat down with her and I said, I'm not feeling like this is working. Do you feel that way too? And I'm going to tell you what, she looked me in the eye. She breathed a huge sigh of relief and she said, I can't do it. I cannot grasp all the moving parts, all the changes in your schedule week to week. I mean, heck, in a day, all the coordination required to manage your calendar and commitments to the 3 different companies that you have ownership of, plus the dozens of people. And we smiled and we laughed at the lunacy of my life and we parted as friends. The thing is, when the person is the right one, you both know it. So Mariali, in addition to managing me, which should be enough for any one person, also wrangles and coordinates all of the rest of the team, as well as everything having to do with LuAnn University, including the instructors and all of you that take the classes. And all I can say is amen and high five to you, Mariali. And then, of course, we have Jose Daniel and Joe. Jose Daniel owns podcast production. He coordinates everything and everyone, from guests to PR reps to the writers to the editors to posting to social media, communication with that team. And Lord knows what else has to get done having to do with the show. It's a lot. You should see the ClickUp board for podcast production. It is a beast, and he handles it seamlessly. So yay you, Jose Daniel. And then there's Joe, who is my video editor. Having spent his first 7 months in my company under Jude's expert tutelage, he edits all of our videos. He takes our full-length shows, he edits them for reels, for emails, for all the things. He puts in the music, the graphics, the captions. He does all the things. And I'm so grateful because he does such a good work. And it seems to be going good. You guys seem to like it. So I'm super happy about that. And of course, there's the external team, my writers, who I adore and I am so grateful for. The care, the attention they give every single show is so evident to me, and I cannot imagine ever being without you, Cassie, Susie, or Janelle. Really, none of you can ever leave. I'm just saying. And then, of course, we have Stephanie Hamilton of Hamilton Creatives doing all the social and event marketing, and Nicole Heimer of Glorian Brand overseeing the branding, creating all the logos, the website, the things that represent us visually to you. These two ladies are remarkable at what they do. Their professionalism, their expertise, their guidance is without comparison. And I cannot recommend them enough to you. If you are in need of a professional like either one of these ladies, their links will be in the show notes. And of course, I can't do this without thanking my sponsors. Cravat Inc., day one, no shows recorded, but a hell yes, let's go. And hear every episode since. Then My Doma Studio, Duke Renders, Revel Woods, Window Works, and Exciting Windows. These companies are here with their unwavering support of both me and you. They show up with their time, their advice, and their dollar bills. And it does not happen without these outstanding companies and the individuals who run them. And then, of course, last but absolutely in no way least, my thanks to the Vin Man. Your support, your cheerleading, your smarts, and your love. It makes it all worth doing. And that's just a simple truth. So the thing is, consistency is a key for all of us here at LuAnn Nigara Inc. and everyone connected to this crazy production. We show up. It matters to each of us to do our best for you, and we appreciate that you show up for us. So you do the same. Show up for yourself in all the ways. And I know it's hard, especially if you're a solo. My advice is to get an accountability buddy. Guess who my accountability buddy is? It's you. You have been my accountability buddy for 8.5 years and 1,000 episodes. Even though I actually have no way of knowing if you would have ever known if we missed a show or if you ever would have cared if we did. But because you were there, I showed up. All of us showed up, even when it was hard. So thank you for being my accountability buddy. And thank you for showing up for me. If you are building your business, decide the things you know you must be better at and consistently work week after week, year after year to be better than the year before. If you're working on your health, show up for yourself, from simple, consistent changes like a daily walk or to big changes like finally doing the marathon you've always wanted to do. The thing is, be consistent, slow, steady, deliberate. Any movement, any action forward is a step in the right direction. It's fun. It's really super fun when we have the bursts, the big ideas, the new projects, the new opportunities. I know it is. But your success is built on the things that you do every dang day. The real progress doesn't come from the highlight reel. The real progress comes in the day-to-day. And you know what I tell you all the time? You have to be prepared to be lucky. That's the secret to all of it. Do you do it well? Do it when no one is looking. Do it with the help of friends, employees, mentors, coaches, and guides. And do what your heart tells you to do. Thank you. Thank you so much for this wild ride. For 1,000 episodes together. Here's to what the future holds for us, my friend. With big hugs. Thank you, thank you. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of LuAnn Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or LuAnn University, go to LuAnnNigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to WindowWorksNJ.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.